this is our second event on campus. We do have roundtable discussion on Tuesday. So hopefully you will. It's in Geographic Society at 3:30 to 5. Hopefully you will be able to come. We do the events. They were sponsored by multiple units on campus. They also sponsored by, because they also go into the George Washington University and Northwestern and Madison. They will be for 3 days in Madison. And now, so we're kind of, it's very productive. A productive visit. I just do kind of quickly I think the essence of what they're doing is, and what kind of the reality they have to deal with is, I would say, summarized in this little. It's anecdote, but it's the fact. So this is the replica of the business card that was found. It's the business card of Dmitro Yarosh, the leader of the Pravy sector. So this is kind of the main enemy of how Russians are portraying it, the main kind of this ultra-Nazi movement in Ukraine, which is completely false. But this is what's good about, what's funny about this business card, that it was found, as reported in Russian media, multiple channels, that there was an explosion, the vehicle exploded, everybody killed, all destroyed, blown up by Pravy sector. The only thing that survived was this business card, picture of Hitler, and the pistol, the second war, from the Second World War period pistol. So there's 3 objects. So that's what they're linking, that exploded vehicle, that was Pravy sector did it. That's this paper. So the Ukrainians kind of, this is as a joke, that now they're having it as a fridge magnet to show, but it's kind of laughing. But this is what this is the facts that they have to work with, because obviously it was a false account, that it's never happened, but they have to prove it, and actually proving that it's not true is much more difficult than just generating those lies. So I'll get, so Tom will give a bit more introduction about the methods, and then they will be talking about what they're doing.
Yes, so as Maria mentioned, this is the second of 3 events that are happening with our visitors on campus. So the first one yesterday was focused more on giving a description of what StopFake.org does, and on discussing in general the propaganda component of Russia's new system of hybrid warfare. This session in the Digital Humanities Lab, the idea is we always like, when we have speakers for the Social Studies and Information Research Group, to have a kind of less formal, more interactive event with the speakers as well as a regular talk. And we thought that as their focus is very much on online work and digital methods, that something in the DH Lab focused on the practicalities and the tools and the methods that they use would be an appropriate thing. Then if you're interested more in the geopolitical situation in Ukraine, the event on March 31st in the AGS library, here elsewhere in the library building, is called Ukraine 1 Year After Maidan, and it's with Neil Peirce, Professor of History, John Reuter, Assistant Professor of Political Science, moderated by Christine Evans from History and Maria Haig from SOAS, and that will be focused more on the kind of bigger picture political issues and broader developments in Ukraine. Now, as I see a camera is pointing at us, we should make the required legal disclaimer that the camera is going to record things. It's pointing this way. If you stay out of shot, it won't see you. But if you say something, your voice will be picked up, and the lawyers do like us to remind you that if you're uncomfortable having your voice recorded, you can write your question down. I don't know why, but they're very attached to that. Now, one of the things that was interesting to me in terms of the work is, if you think of fact-checking like PolitiFact, it's very much a question of finding an expert and asking some kind of interpretation, and then they'll say, well, they made this claim, that's kind of literally true, but it's also misleading because the figures it's based on don't go with these figures, so we'll give it like half true, that kind of thing. And what was interesting to me is the kind of, because of just the blatantness of the propaganda, that the kind of fact-checking that's involved here is much more about specifically digital things. Like, here's a picture. you know, it says it's got the swastika on and it's showing Nazis in Ukraine, but, you know, Reuters had the original and it's, you know, a picture of a march in Austria or something, you know, something like that, that kind of stuff, which is why I think something that's useful to bear in mind, specifically the connection to DH Lab. And with that said, I will now turn over to Olga and Tetiana, who will begin by saying a little bit more and by just showing us a couple of examples of the work that they do with Stop Fake.
Thank you, Maria, thank you, Tom. I will continue, and I'm going to tell you about the day when it was created. It was the 2nd of March last year, when we, young Ukrainian journalists, were watching TV, and we saw that Ukrainian media reported that in Crimea there were Russian troops, Russian military troops, and at the same time Russian media reported that there were no Russian troops in Crimea. There were some green men who were not brought from Russia and who were the Crimea originals. And we were shocked because for example, when I studied journalism at the university, my professors taught me that for journalists, the truth is always in the middle. And you should take 2 points of view, and your readers will understand what is the truth by listening to different opinions, different views. But look at that situation. Russian troops are in Crimea, or Russian troops are not in Crimea. So the truth can't be in the middle in this situation. And that was the day when we understood that we should do something with this. We should explain journalists, explain readers, viewers, explain to Europe, to the US what was going on. And all of us are alumni from the National University of Kyiv Mohyla Academy, and we have a close group on Facebook, and we can organize our work, we can coordinate our work by this group. And we decided together and to have a brainstorming and to think what to do, what we can do in this situation. And Olga came up with the idea of creating the website to reveal false information. And the idea was quite simple, but very original, to take fakes, to reveal them by facts, and to show this is what was reported, and this is the truth. At first it seemed to be very simple, but then we understood that we couldn't use a way of refuting the information by taking word against word. Because when Sergei Lavrov says something and then the Ukrainian Minister of Foreign Affairs Pavel Klimkin says something different, we cannot understand who is right and who is wrong. So we cannot refute the words of Sergei Lavrov by the words of Dmitro Klimkin, and vice versa. So we decided not to take such examples and to refute information only by facts or by official statistics. For example, we had an example when Vladimir Putin said that 20% of Ukrainians worked in Russia. That is why it's impossible to separate our countries and to make Ukraine independent from Russia. But we looked at the website of Russian Statistics Committee, and we saw that only 3% of Ukrainians were in Russia by that period. It means that among them there were students, tourists, diplomats, etc., etc. And we looked at the website of the Ukrainian Statistics Committee, and we saw the same figures. That is why we decided that we have two different sources, official sources. We have the sources of our border guards, Russian-Ukrainian border, and we know how many people crossed this border, and we can take these figures and we can refute Vladimir Putin's words about 20% of Ukrainians working in Russia, because only 3% of Ukrainians were in Russia at this time. So we can use these facts. But we cannot use words of, for example, Petro Poroshenko, the Ukrainian president, if he refuted the words of Vladimir Putin by his own words. Of course, we have many problems because we are volunteers, and each of us has its regular job. So we have to go to our regular job each day, and in the evenings, during the weekends, we work on Stop Fake, sometimes during lunch or some free time during the working day. And therefore, we cannot go to the Donbass or to Crimea to check something and to see something by our own eyes. That is why sometimes we cannot refute some fakes about these regions because we have no facts. But of course we can use the work of our colleagues from other independent Ukrainian media. We never use the words of journalists Ukrainian journalists who work for the state media or for the media controlled by Ukrainian oligarchs, because we understand that Russian audience and Western audience cannot believe them fully. But we do have independent Ukrainian journalists. For example, we have Hromadske TV. This is a TV channel which is crowd-funded, and people support it by their own money. And we trust their journalists because we know them, and sometimes we ask them to bring us some proofs from the Donbass or from Crimea, some photos, videos, or something else. But it's just an exception, because usually we can take some improvements only if we have photos or videos. While looking for fakes, we monitor Russian media and Ukrainian media because we understand that there can be fakes everywhere. But in Ukraine we don't have propaganda, we don't have state propaganda, and we can see it while reading our media. We see that one media may have one point of view, and another media may have another point of view. So we don't need to fight Ukrainian propaganda, but unfortunately we have in Ukraine we have a lazy journalism, or maybe a sloppy journalism, something like that. When our journalists try to report something first, and they take information and not verify it. That is why we decided to fight this lazy journalism, and therefore we refute Ukrainian fakes, and we show our journalists how they should work not to make these fakes. But the difference is that at first we tried to cooperate with Russian media, and we sent them their fakes and our refutations and proofs, and ask them to take these fakes off their websites. But there was no answer, and we quitted it. But with the Ukrainian media, it's much more easy. Much easier, because we can write to a website and to ask the journalists to take off this fake from their website, and in most cases they agree and they take it off. But if we see that this fake was spread by tens of websites, we don't write to anybody and we refute it on our website. As I mentioned, we try to use photos, videos, statistics to refute fakes which we find, and of course we have a problem of financial support, and we cannot hire people to help us, for example, with monitoring media. That is why now we have a problem. We cannot physically cover all the Russian media, all the Ukrainian media, and therefore we applied for a grant to the several independent organizations, European and also American, and now we